Elara walked into the boardroom wearing a white suit and heels that echoed like gunshots against marble. 12 men in expensive ties looked up from their leather folders. At the head of the table, Marcus Westbrook stood mid-sentence, gesturing at a projected spreadsheet about quarterly projections. His hand froze in the air when he saw her. The color drained from his face like someone had pulled a plug. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. She pulled out the chair at the opposite end of the table, the chair reserved for majority shareholders, sat down, crossed her legs, opened a leather briefcase with movements so deliberate they felt weaponized. "Elara," Marcus finally managed. His voice came out strangled. "What are you? Why are you?" "Gentlemen," she said, ignoring him completely. Her voice carried through the silence like a blade through silk. "Shall we begin?" An older board member named Richardson leaned forward, confused. "I'm sorry, miss, but this is a private meeting. If you're here for the consultant position, that's being handled by—" "I'm not here for a position." Elara slid a document across the polished table. It stopped perfectly in front of Richardson. "I'm here because I own this company." Richardson picked up the document. His eyes scanned the first page, then widened. "This says you hold 53.2% of company shares." "That's correct." Marcus's face went from pale to red. "That's impossible. I would have been notified of any major—" "You were notified," Elara interrupted, her voice calm as still water. 17 times, actually. Through 17 different shell companies, equity firms, and investment partnerships. Small purchases, spread over 18 months. Each one carefully calculated to stay just below your reporting threshold. She let that settle like dust after an explosion. "I've been watching you, Marcus. Watching you bleed money on vanity projects. Watching your stock price drop after that merger disaster. And when you were weak enough, desperate enough, I bought you." The room went silent. Someone's pen hit the table. Marcus gripped the edge of the conference table so hard his knuckles went white. "Why?" The question came from a younger board member Elara didn't recognize. "What do you want?" "To fix what's broken," Elara said simply. She looked directly at Marcus. "Starting with leadership that makes emotional decisions instead of strategic ones." But 5 years ago, Elara Bennett had been someone completely different. 5 years ago, she'd been the woman signing divorce papers with shaking hands, walking out of a penthouse in tears, losing everything she thought defined her. This is how that transformation happened. Hello, family. Welcome to True Life Stories. Please subscribe and hit that like button. Share this with anyone who needs to remember that rock bottom is just a foundation waiting to be built on. Turn on notifications so you never miss our stories. Now, sit back as we dive in. The morning everything ended, Elara woke up feeling strange. Nauseous, but not sick. Exhausted, but wired. She'd felt this way for 3 days, and finally, that morning, she'd taken the test. 2 pink lines appeared almost immediately, clear and undeniable. Pregnant. 8 weeks, maybe more. She'd stared at that little plastic stick for 10 minutes, emotions cascading through her so fast she couldn't name them. Fear, joy, terror, hope. She'd practiced the announcement in the mirror. Imagined Marcus's face lighting up. Imagined him spinning her around the kitchen like he used to when they were young and broke and believed love could survive anything. She'd even bought his favorite wine for dinner, planned the whole evening. Then Marcus came home early. He walked through the door of their penthouse, threw his keys on the marble counter and said, "We need to talk." Something in his voice made Elara's stomach drop. She'd hidden the pregnancy test in her pocket, her prepared speech dying in her throat. "I'm leaving you," Marcus said. Just like that. No preamble, no cushion. "I've already spoken to my attorney. The papers are ready. I need you to sign tonight because I'm announcing my engagement to Victoria tomorrow." The world tilted. Elara grabbed the counter to steady herself. Victoria, your business partner? Don't make this dramatic, Marcus said, like she was the one being unreasonable. Things haven't been good between us for months. You know that. We haven't even fought, Elara's voice cracked. We haven't. Marcus, I was going to tell you something today. Something important. It doesn't matter. He pulled a manila envelope from his briefcase, set it on the counter. Everything's outlined here. I'm being generous with the settlement. 6 months of expenses. That should give you time to figure things out. Elara pulled the pregnancy test from her pocket with trembling fingers. Held it up. I'm pregnant. Marcus glanced at it the way someone might glance at junk mail. His expression didn't change. How long have you known? 3 days. So you're barely pregnant. He said it like that made it less real. Look, I'll cover medical expenses through the first trimester. After that, you make whatever choice you need to make. Elara felt something crack inside her chest. Not her heart. Something deeper. The foundation she'd built her entire adult life on. This is our baby. No. His voice went cold, surgical. That's your situation. Mine is with Victoria. She understands my vision. She's sophisticated, connected. She moves in the right circles. She doesn't... He stopped himself, but the rest hung in the air anyway. She doesn't what? Elara's voice rose for the first time. She doesn't work 2 jobs to put you through business school. She doesn't spend 7 years supporting your dreams while her own disappear. She doesn't stay up until 3 in the morning helping you prep for investor meetings. She doesn't need me to rescue her, Marcus said quietly. That's what you were, Elara, a project. You were sweet when I was nobody, but I'm not nobody anymore. I need a partner who matches where I am now, not where I was. The words landed like physical blows. Elara's hand went instinctively to her stomach. I loved you. I know. Marcus pulled out his phone, checked something. Which is why I'm asking you to make this easy. Sign. Tonight. I've already had your things moved to a storage unit. The address is in the paperwork. You already... You moved my things? Elara's voice came out hollow. I'm not a monster, but I'm also not a fool. This needed to be clean. He headed toward the bedroom, then paused. For what it's worth, I did love who you were when we met. You just stopped growing. He disappeared into the bedroom. Elara stood in the kitchen, the pregnancy test clutched in one hand, the envelope in the other. Through the bedroom door, she could hear Marcus on the phone. Yeah, it's happening now. She's signing. We're clear for tomorrow. Something hot and sharp rose in Elara's throat. She looked down at the test. 2 pink lines, a future she'd imagined, names she'd whispered to herself. A little girl with her laugh, a little boy with his eyes. Then she looked at the envelope. With a sound that was half sob, half scream, Elara tore the pregnancy test in half. The plastic cracked clean down the middle. She let both pieces fall to the floor. Then she ripped open the envelope and started signing. She didn't read the terms, didn't check what she was giving up. Just signed her name over and over, 15 times, erasing 7 years in black ink. When she finished, Elara grabbed her purse and walked toward the door. Her hand was on the knob when Marcus's voice stopped her. Leave your key. She pulled it from her pocket, set it on the small table by the door. Then she walked out. Made it 3 steps before her knees buckled. She caught herself against the hallway wall, one hand pressed to her stomach, silent sobs shaking her whole body. The elevator ride down felt like descending into nothing. By the time Elara reached the street, rain had started. No coat, no umbrella. Just $17 in her wallet and a phone with 30 missed calls she couldn't face answering. She walked for hours, past their favorite restaurant, past the coffee shop where they'd spent Sunday mornings. Every landmark was a ghost. Eventually, she found herself at a budget motel with a flickering vacancy sign. The man behind bulletproof glass took one look at her soaked designer clothes and hollow eyes and gave her a room for the $17 she had. Room 12 smelled like cigarettes and broken dreams. Elara sat on the edge of the bed, still dripping, and felt the first cramp twist through her abdomen. Sharp, unmistakable. She stumbled to the bathroom. Blood. The baby she'd known about for 3 days was already leaving. Elara collapsed to the cold tile floor, arms wrapped around herself. The sound that came out of her wasn't crying. It was something primal and raw, a noise she didn't know she could make. She stayed there until the bleeding slowed, until her voice gave out, until there was nothing left inside but hollow space. When she finally looked in the mirror, the woman staring back was a stranger, hollow-eyed, pale as paper. But beneath the devastation, something else flickered, something sharp and bright and dangerous. Rage. 3 days later, Elara was still in that motel room, lying on the bed, staring at water stains on the ceiling. She'd barely eaten, barely moved. Her phone had died. She didn't charge it. But on the third day, there was a knock on the door. "You alive in there?" A woman's voice, older, firm. Elara opened the door. A Latina woman in her 60s stood there with a bag of groceries. "I'm Rosa. I manage this place. You've been here 3 days and I haven't seen you come out once. That's not good." "I'm fine." "You're a terrible liar." Rosa pushed past her, set the bag on the small table. "I brought soup. When's the last time you ate?" Elara couldn't remember. Rosa unpacked containers, found a spoon, and handed Elara soup without asking permission. They ate in silence for several minutes before Rosa spoke again. "My husband left me when I was 26, took everything but the furniture. I sat in our empty apartment for 2 weeks eating nothing but crackers and hatred." She met Elara's eyes. "You know what I learned?" Elara shook her head. "Grief has a shelf life. Rage doesn't. Question is what you build with it." Rosa stood, started gathering the empty containers. "You can let it eat you or let it forge you. Your choice. But you can't keep living in this room pretending you're already dead." After Rosa left, Elara opened her laptop for the first time. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed, "How to rebuild after losing everything?" The search results flooded in. Success stories, transformation narratives, people who'd been bankrupt, divorced, homeless, and climbed back. Elara clicked on a video. A woman in a sharp suit speaking at a conference. "5 years ago, I was sleeping in my car with $200 and a business degree I'd never used. Today, I run a $50 million consulting firm. This is how I did it." Elara watched the whole thing. Then another, then another. By sunrise, she was taking notes. By afternoon, she'd created profiles on 3 freelance platforms: business consultant, strategic planning, market analysis. 7 years experience. She left out that the experience was uncredited support for Marcus's company, just listed skills and results. Her first inquiry came 2 days later. A man named David Ortega needed help restructuring his family restaurant business. 20 locations, all losing money. The offered rate was insulting, $300 for what would be weeks of work. Elara stared at the message for a long time, then typed, "Yes. When can we start?" The restaurant project consumed her. Elara spent 2 weeks analyzing everything: vendor contracts, staffing, menu design, customer flow. She worked from coffee shops because she couldn't afford to heat her motel room, survived on dollar coffee and protein bars. When she presented her findings, David stared at the document in silence. "This is incredibly thorough," he said finally. "Your problems are fixable," Elara replied. "All of them. How much would you charge to actually implement these changes?" Elara hadn't expected that. What? To fix it, not just identify what's wrong. I'll pay you properly this time, 10% of whatever profit increase we see in the first year. Elara's heart started racing. 10% of nothing was nothing, but 10% of something. Deal. Over 6 months, Elara rebuilt David's business. She renegotiated every contract, streamlined operations, retrained management, worked 18-hour days, fell asleep on buses. By month 4, the restaurants were profitable. By month 6, they were thriving. Elara's cut was $43,000. She stared at the check in disbelief. "You earned it," David said, "and I'm telling everyone I know about you." Word spread. David told his brother. The brother told his wife. The wife told her book club. Within 3 months, Elara had 6 clients. She moved into a real apartment, bought a desk, called herself Bennett Consulting. 1 year after the divorce, a CEO named Julian Reeves called. His tech startup was hemorrhaging money, and the board wanted answers. Elara took the project, found massive structural problems no one wanted to acknowledge, presented her findings without sugarcoating anything. Half the executives hated her. The other half recognized brilliance. Julian implemented every recommendation. Within 6 months, his company was profitable. Within a year, they were acquired for $200 million. Elara's name was suddenly everywhere. The consultant who saved Meridian, the woman who sees what others miss. Elara started speaking at conferences, industry podcasts, building visibility. But she wasn't just building her career, she was watching Marcus. His company, Westbridge Holdings, was struggling. Bad acquisitions, failed launches, a merger that collapsed spectacularly. She saw it in the careful wording of press releases, the nervous energy when his name came up at conferences. 2 years after the divorce, Elara launched her own firm, Bennett Strategic Solutions, hired 3 brilliant women who'd all been underestimated, worked from a glass-walled office in the financial district. Her reputation grew. Companies called when they were desperate. She fixed them, then moved on. But she never stopped watching Marcus. 3 years in, Elara made her move, started quietly buying up his debt through shell companies, partnered with his competitors. When his stock dipped after the failed merger, she bought shares, small purchases, careful, strategic. It took 18 months of chess moves, positioning pieces he couldn't see. 4 years and 10 months after signing divorce papers in tears, Elara owned 53.2% of Westbridge Holdings. She didn't tell anyone, just scheduled a board meeting, marked herself as attending, and showed up, which brought her back to this moment. Standing in the boardroom, 12 men staring at her in shock, Marcus gripping the table like it was the only thing keeping him upright. Richardson cleared his throat. "Miss Bennett, this is highly irregular. Perhaps we should adjourn and—" "No," Elara's voice cut clean. "We're finishing this meeting. I have proposals that need voting today." She pulled out another document. "Starting with a complete financial audit of all company operations." "You can't just—" Marcus started. "I can," Elara interrupted. "I'm the majority shareholder, which means every decision you make now requires my approval." She looked around the table. "All in favor of a full audit, raise your hands." 11 hands went up. Only Marcus's stayed down. "Motion passes," Elara made a note. "Second item. I'm bringing in an outside consulting firm to evaluate all current projects and recommend what to cut." "This is my company," Marcus said. His voice shook. "I built this from nothing. You can't just tear it apart." "I'm not tearing it apart. I'm saving it." Elara finally looked directly at him. "Which is what I tried to do 5 years ago when you were making these same mistakes on a smaller scale. You didn't listen then. You don't have a choice now." Marcus stood abruptly. "I need to speak with you, privately." Elara considered him. then nodded. Conference room B, 10 minutes. In the smaller conference room, Marcus closed the door and turned to face her. How did you even do this? Where did you get the money? You were nobody. I was nobody to you, Elara corrected. Turns out I was somebody to myself. She set her briefcase down. I built a consulting firm, one impossible client at a time, 18-hour days, no safety net, no one believing in me except me. And I became the strategist you always needed but never valued. I didn't know you could do that. You never asked. Elara's voice stayed level. You saw someone to rescue, someone to make you feel important. Never an equal. I loved you, Marcus said. You loved what I did for you. Different thing. Elara pulled out a folder. Here's what happens next. You implement every change I recommend, or you resign. The company survives either way. That's it? You're not even staying to run things? I don't want your company, Marcus. I have 6 other clients who actually value my work. She headed for the door, paused. You asked why I did this. You thought revenge. But it wasn't. It was proof. Proof of what? That the woman you threw away was always the one building empires. You just never noticed because you were standing on top of them. She walked out. Back in the boardroom, Elara presented her restructuring plan with surgical precision. Every proposal passed. Marcus sat silent, watching his company get rebuilt by the woman he'd underestimated. When the meeting ended, Richardson approached nervously. Miss Bennett, the board would like you to consider a permanent advisory position. Send me your consulting rates, Elara said. Monthly retainer, 6-month minimum, full veto power on major decisions. Done. Elara nodded once and left. In the elevator, she finally allowed herself to breathe. Really breathe. The adrenaline faded, leaving something unexpected behind. Not triumph, not satisfaction, completion. Like she'd been holding her breath for 5 years and could finally exhale. Her phone buzzed. Rosa. How did it go? Elara smiled. Rosa was the only person who knew about today. I won. Rosa's response came instantly. Of course you did. Come over. Made too much chicken. That evening, sitting in Rosa's warm kitchen eating homemade food,
I'm so
Elara
happy we
felt
could do
something
this tonight.
shift inside her.
Me too.
Not closure
Cheers.
exactly, but peace. Or maybe just the absence of war. 2 weeks later, her assistant buzzed. Miss Bennett, there's a Marcus Westbrook here. No appointment. Elara closed her laptop. Send him in. Marcus entered holding a small box. I found this cleaning out storage. Thought you might want it. He set it on her desk. Inside was their wedding album. The young couple on the cover smiled at each other like they'd just won the lottery. Why would I want this? Elara asked. Maybe you wouldn't, but those memories were real before everything went wrong. Elara looked at the album, at 2 kids who believed love was enough. They were real, but they're gone. I'm stepping down, Marcus said. Not because you're forcing me, because you're right. I'm not the leader Westbridge needs. He met her eyes. Thank you for not destroying me when you could have. I'm not better than you, Elara said. I'm just different. I had to become different to survive what you did. Marcus flinched but nodded. At the door, he turned back. The baby. Do you ever wonder? No, Elara lied, because the truth was complicated and private, and his to never know. Goodbye, Marcus. After he left, Elara opened the album, flipped through pages of 2 naive kids, certain they'd beat the odds. She felt tender toward them, but she didn't wish to be them again. She closed the album, put it in her desk drawer, and turned back to her computer. She had a presentation to finish. 3 new clients next week. A life that was entirely, completely, beautifully hers. Outside her window, the city stretched in all directions, full of possibility, full of second acts and third chances, full of people who refused to let their worst day define them. Elara's story almost ended on that motel bathroom floor, but it hadn't. Instead, it had begun. She opened a new document and started typing. There was always more work to do, more companies to save, more impossible things to make inevitable, and this time she was doing it all for herself. Thank you for watching this story, family. If it moved you, hit that subscribe button and leave a like. Share it with anyone who needs to hear that rock bottom can become a foundation, that endings can become beginnings, that the person who breaks you doesn't get to define you. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. Until then, remember, you are not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become after.